Okay, I have everything started, Bill.
Okay. All right, very quickly before we start, we have an executive session that will follow the committee meetings via Zoom. And the two items will involve, number one, a personnel issue, and then number two, litigation. And I'll let Mr. Corbel speak to that later on. Thank you.
Okay, and if you don't mind, before I start with planning and zoning, I just wanted to mention today is my wife's birthday. So I think she might be watching on YouTube. Happy birthday, Kathy. And since I'm always missing somebody's birthday, yesterday was my son Andrew's 30th birthday. So happy birthday to you, buddy. And one more thing, I'm sorry. Sometimes my granddaughter Gracie is watching this. Why, I don't know, but Gracie, listen to mommy and daddy. You got to sleep through the night, sweetie. You need your rest. So, in any case, now I'm ready to start planning and zoning, Bill, if you're okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Sure, we can start.
Okay, I just have one item. Everything else I have is just reminders. The one item is something you had seen in an email a couple of weeks ago. I don't think there's anything we're doing with this, but I wanted to remind you that the Tri-Cog Land Bank was requesting any recommendations for acquisition of properties for spring of 2021. And you have until the end of this month to get it to them. Again, nobody has said anything to me about anything. I don't think there's anything that we're looking to send to them, but I just, since it is April, I wanted to remind you about that. And that's all I know. I did send this to you in an email, and it mentions in the thing, there's an attachment about Woodland Hills. So please take a look at your email, that the attachment is there. Other than that, I have nothing unless you have a question for me. So I'm finished, Mr. Burley.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Anything on the outstanding items? Is Silversmith off the?
Well, Mr. Corbel may be talking about Silversmith under his report because of that weight limit issue. So that's under committee of the whole. If you don't mind, we'll wait till then. I don't have anything new. And actually, Dawn's going to talk about sidewalks. So I'll let him talk about that.
All right, sounds good. Okay, Don?
Yeah, last Thursday, I did a survey of all the sidewalks on the Greensburg Pike, and I come up with 10 that need repaired or replaced. And I don't know what made me think about it, but I just wanted to be sure that it has nothing to do with that WalkWorks grant that we got for the sidewalks before I start sending out violation letters. So I'd like to know how you feel about it.
There's a condition of looking and inspecting the sidewalks in the WalkWorks grant. We may be able to, in a subsequent grant, to get some funds for helping to make repairs, but it has nothing to do with any violations that may be issued in the meantime.
Okay, so you feel at this time I can go ahead and send violation letters out to these people?
I have no objection.
I don't have objection either.
Okay, that's good. I got a call the other day from this is pertaining to tree and shrub, from a resident up on Roxbury Road. Evidently, we had taken down a tree. I don't remember when it was. It didn't look familiar to me. But anyways, she wants another tree planted. And I looked at the street, and every tree on the street is all pin oaks. And if we take one of our trees that we have in storage behind the rec center and put it in there, it's going to kind of like throw the things off on the whole street. So how do you feel about it? Should we go and buy another pin oak and plant it for her? Or should we just use one of our trees that we have?
Is it a borough tree? Would it be a borough tree in our right of way?
Yes, it's a borough tree.
That
is correct.
I would advocate getting a pin oak. They're pretty hardy, and they grow well in this area. They're pretty viable trees.
Okay,
Well,
I just wanted to be sure.
Should be consistent. Okay, I think it'd be good to do that. Yes.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and I'll order a pin oak for her, because we don't have any pin oaks in the back.
I have some, but they're only about a foot tall. all.
Yeah. The other
Dawn,
thing is
oh, sorry,
I'm-
Dawn, I'm also on board. I'm also on board with that, but I did want to bring up one other thing before you went to the next matter. I was contacted by 3 or 4 residents on Cascade Road. They're very disappointed. They claim that they were never even posted, and they have video. The paving work started, I guess, yesterday morning, and the contractor posted the postings the morning of at 7 a.m. So I know that's definitely, I know it's obviously not us and it's the subcontractors through the water company. So there's a lot of variables there, but residents were trapped in their house or out of their house and couldn't get back in all yesterday, and they're very disappointed. They said the subcontractors that did all the work to get the water lines in on Cascade did a great job, but these guys did not give notice and just started digging up the road. So I got 3 phone calls yesterday by 9:30 a.m. From residents on Cascade.
Okay, I'll discuss that with Jimmy Thielacker, Public Works Department, and see if he can change or do anything. I don't know what can be done, but at least bring it to his attention.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I know it's too late, and I know that Dave. I mean, we always do our own posting and stuff, when we do ours, and
Right.
our contractors have to abide by those rules. So, I just wanted to make you aware of it because you're driving around. I know someone's going to stop you in that area,
Okay.
but that's just a forewarning.
Okay, thank you. I definitely will bring it up to Jimmy and see if there's anything that can be arranged or done in any
No
way.
problem. Thank you.
Okay. The other thing is on Washington Road, I got 2 phone calls from residents that have a problem. So I go up and I investigate the problem, and here they're linden trees on Washington Road. And I looked at them, and there's 10 of them that need pruned. Now, when I say pruned, what they're doing is they're big, heavy limbs that are laying down on the cable lines. Duquesne Light went through, they butchered the trees as they always do, which kind of upset me, but that's the way it is, I guess, with Duquesne Light. But these other limbs are laying down on the cable lines, and they're bowed. So I was just wanting to know how you feel about it. Should we, there's 10 of them that need to be pruned and taken off of the cable lines. So I was thinking maybe we ought to put it back out for bid and see what we could do that way. Or do you feel that Crusper could come in, who's in the borough now, and prune them back? There are big, heavy limbs that they're bowing the cable lines down.
Well, it definitely needs to be done because there's a hazard. Yes,
They're
Bill.
all bur trees. They're all in the bur right away.
Okay. Yes, Bill.
Okay, so is that our responsibility? Or is it whoever owns the cable's responsibility?
Well, that I don't know, but I know one thing, if the cable comes down, they don't do anything until the cable breaks. That's the way it's been for years. They won't come out and do anything.
Well, I don't know. This is the first time I've been confronted with this the entire time that I've been here.
Cable usually doesn't prune.
Yeah,
Mr. Corporal, could you speak to that?
I don't know. I think if it's a burrow tree, we can prune them without damaging the cables and prevent further, hazard. If we can prune those trees in a way that would, be appropriate, I think it would be, if they're burrow trees, I think we have an obligation to prune them.
Mr. Corbel? I mean, you're probably
Yes.
talking about $10,000.
So if it's not a burrow tree, we shouldn't do anything. And if it is a burrow tree or burrow trees, we can do something if we would like. But the information regarding whether or not the cable company will do anything or do pruning, in my experience everywhere, is that they don't do anything until there is a break.
Right.
So I don't know if it's a borough tree or not. Do you know, Don?
Yes, they're all borough trees. We went up and measured the streets, all in the borough right away.
So, council has you could get a quote and decide if you want to do anything. I don't think we're obligated to remove them, but it's, if you want to make sure that the lines don't come down and the people keep their service, you might have to weigh that versus the cost.
Well, does anyone feel that we should put this out for bid or have Crusper come in and do it while he's in the borough?
Would that be included in what we're already paying Crusper for?
No way he would
No.
ever do that.
No, no way.
I mean, you should get a separate quote about, we've already gone out and done our bidding for that. So if you wanted to add on or whatnot, we'd have to ask them what the quote would be. And then depending on what that amount is, we may have an obligation to get a couple other telephonic quotes if it's over 10,000. I can't remember exactly what that number is, something around 10,000. I doubt, it doesn't sound like it would be more than 20,000, which would require, advertising. But so that, if that's where council wants to go, that's probably the next step.
So you're
Get
saying
Crusper to give a quote.
if it's 10,000 or less, we don't have to advertise. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the way
20,000 or less.
Yeah, the way the rules worked on is there's a limit. It's around 10 or 11,000, and anything under that, you don't have to bid or do telephonic quotes. If it's between that 10 or 11,000 and 20-ish thousand, you have to get 3 telephonic quotes. And if it's over that number, 20-some thousand, then you have to advertise for bids. And that number changes every year. It's indexed to inflation. I just don't have them handy with me right here. But if you get a quote from Crusper, we can determine whether or not you can accept it without any telephonic quotes, whether you need to get telephonic quotes, or if you got to go out for bid. But Crusper will give you the first sense of where the cost should probably generally come down.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Why don't you just get that done and then we'll see where we're at. I mean, if
Yeah,
if it's cheap, it's something we can look at. If it's going to be a lot of money, I mean, that's probably a problem all over the place,
Right.
And if it does come down, that's when the cable company will come out and they'll take care of it pretty quick in that case. It's just,
Right.
They're not going to do anything until something occurs.
Yeah, I agree. We should see where we are and get some numbers together and talk about it.
Okay, that's good. That's what I'll do then. That's all I have.
And
Okay.
Steve, I've said this. Sorry, Bill. Steve,
Sure.
I said this before. I think we need to put this on. I don't know if you want to put it on borough property or public works. I mean, probably needs to go on borough property, but we need to discuss about putting a $500,000 or $750,000 away for a tree. I mean, if we're going to keep planting trees and we're going to be Tree City USA, we have to maintain these trees. We can't just keep doing it on the whim. These trees just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm all for it, but we have to prune them and maintain them. Because, I mean, some people do it and some people don't do it. Some people think that they can't do it. So I think that this year, I mean, I guess in the next 3 months, 3 to 6 months, while we're discussing our planning for next year and the budgeting for next year, I think that we need to discuss putting $500,000 of our taxpayer dollars away for tree pruning. I mean, our budgeted amount right now is just too minimal. We can't cover our basis. I mean, Dawn's always coming to us in the spring while we're either pruning or our pruning contract's done and saying that we have issues at property. So I think that that's the best way to do it going forward. I think just like we do our street paving, it's the only thing that's going to stay in there and be a repetitive thing. or we just stop dealing with the trees completely. I don't care, but we have to do something to protect the trees and the residences in the borough.
What do you think, Patty? You think we should have something in line too? Tommy, what do you think?
I agree that we need to put an allocation for trees. We're a tree city. We do not cover replacement of trees, and I've pointed this out a couple of times. But I think we do put in money for pruning. It just never seems to be enough. And it doesn't allow for these emergency kind of conditions. I think it would be helpful if we get a real arborist to actually do an evaluation of the condition of the trees on all of our street trees. I know that, you know, Dawn, you do that to some extent, but I think it would be helpful if we're looking at the budget for next year to look at a comprehensive tree maintenance and replacement process that will allow us. I know we took out 30 trees this year because of hazardous and dead condition, and we did not make a provision for replacing those. And I think we need to pay attention to that as a policy matter. And I don't know what it would cost. I think possibly in developing the projections for the budget for this coming year, we ought to look carefully at what it would cost to actually do an assessment of our canopy, especially the borough trees, and get an estimate of proper pruning and replacement of those that we have to take out. Just to get a
I
number.
agree.
Do you want this discussion on
Bill.
borough property? Or not?
Wait, hold on.
Yes,
Okay.
Bill.
I believe that this would be a finance committee issue because you're going to have to put a certain amount of money in there. I think that what we should do for the time being is rely on Dawn and Jimmy temporarily to get out there and see, because Dawn has been through the borough multiple times looking at these different tree issues. So if he gives us an idea, as he has in the past for the pruning, all right, what we can do then is see what kind of monies we're talking about moving forward, and then stick it in the budget for next year. You know, if we're going to talk about $100,000, and then you got to put $100,000 in there, and it's got to be paid for. So I think that we should start in-house because that's how we've been doing it. But we've never set an amount. We've never said, this is how much money we want to spend, and it's going to be available for just dealing with the trees. So I think that would be something we could start immediately, and then have, you know, and then Dawn can seek help from whomever in terms of adding trees to the list that they think might be applicable. Dawn, you have any thoughts on that issue?
Not really, no, but I can get a hold of our arborist. We do have Carl's Tree Service as our main arborist, so I can get in touch with him and see how he feels about it and go from there. That's the start of it anyway,
Yeah, get a start.
but it's gonna,
Might also be worth
it's
asking
gonna be
the
long.
Shrub Commission if they would give us an assessment of what the condition of the borough trees might be for replacement and maintenance pruning, you know, preventive damage pruning. That maybe they would have a way to help with that.
Right.
Can I say that that I agree this should put on a committee, but before we do, let's plan on when you want to do this, and let's gather information first to see how much you budgeted toward possibly using Carl's, what the borough code says about how much you can dedicate to trees. I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was like 1/10 of a mil, and I don't know that that means you can only do that. That would be something for Mr. Corbel to decide, and I'm not sure, since they revised the borough code, if that's changed, but I believe it was something like 1/10 of a mil dedicated to shade trees. So what I would suggest is let's gather all the information rather than just talking and without having any knowledge first. Decide when you want to talk about that. Let us know. Dawn, Jimmy, myself, Carl's can get the information together and then put it on a committee so you know how much it's going to cost you for their arborist to go and look at stuff, how much time Jimmy and Dawn are going to need, what the limit is you can put as far as the millage is concerned on for trees directly. That way you're not just talking in a vacuum.
How long do you think it'll take for us to get that information together?
I
That's
mean,
good.
we could talk about it in June, May, June, July, something like that, where you
Let's-
want it in time for the budget. So the budget starts in August.
Let's target June then, so that we have a month or so to get all this information together.
And put it on finance like.
Finance, yeah,
Okay,
finance. Mhm.
that's fine. I'll talk to Dawn about it further and we'll try to get some numbers. And I'll double check the borough code and all that. And we'll look for June.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Okay, that's all I have.
all right, thank you very much, Don. Any other planning and zoning discussions? If not, I'm done.
Okay, I need just a few seconds and I'll go to finance, but just give me a couple of seconds if you would, please. Okay, I'm fine with finance. If you're ready to start, Ms. DeMarco, I can get going here.
You could do the manager's update for us. The cash flow year to date is looking pretty good.
Okay, let me, I don't know what happened to my files here. Hold on one second. Oh, there we go. You have a copy of the cash flow through the end of March, entering April. And the red line that's on here on the screen, if you're looking, if you have your computer and not doing this on phone, you can see this is our 2021 line, and going into ending March, going into April, we are actually ahead of where we have been in recent years. So that's a very positive thing. I don't see any negatives there. Again, of course, this is just a point in time, like I keep saying, but things look pretty good. If you have any questions for me about that, I'd be happy to talk about it. I don't really have much more to say about it other than that. Is that okay? Anybody have any questions? Let me go to item B then. Next month typically is a time when we start the capital improvements plan, but I'd like to make a change in that. Usually we do that in May. We review the plan. We get everybody to spend a lot of time and effort looking at things that they want to add to the plan for 2022 in this case, things that they want to continue into the future. Because you folks are considering the bond issue spending, and we're going to talk about that later tonight in finance, my suggestion is let's simplify things and not go through the same detailed review as we have before. That's what my notes essentially say. What I would ask essentially, if you're okay with this in May, is a memo that I typically give out, shortened, to say that anybody who wants to submit anything new, we should submit, but anything that's currently on the plan should remain there as you break down and talk about how you want to allocate bond issue dollars. You may not decide that immediately. It may take a few months to decide how you want to do that. And rather than go through the exercise of doing a whole new plan, my suggestion for this year, and maybe even for next year too, is just simply add to it rather than spending months and months and months reviewing. So I'll go in a little bit more detail about that in May if you're okay with that method. I just think it makes sense since you really need to decide what you're going to do with bond issue funds. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Does anybody have any questions? Everybody okay with, you're okay with that, Marcus?
And I think what you said with the employees, whenever they have an idea, we should just add it to the existing plan, maybe even take something off at some,
yeah,
just keep it as a living document and we don't have to redo it from scratch every time.
Right, okay. Everybody, anybody else?
No, I'm fine with that.
Mr. Gore, you're okay? Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, Steve, sorry.
Great, that's okay, thank you. All right, item C, just a reminder, we did send that actuarial evaluation request to Block and Hopton. That's going to take them a little bit of time. I think they estimated they'd have it for us in June, that report. So
Okay.
I just want to let you know that I don't have anything yet. Item D, under outstanding items, there's three things I want to remind you about. I have reminded you in the past about the trash contract. I know you're talking about that. And that's something the solicitor works on. I know the Environmental Advisory Council wants some input on that. And again, I want to remind you, if you're going to talk to Chalfont about police and public works, you want to do that relatively soon. In the past, it's usually gone, through council as a whole, and I think the council president's usually been involved in that discussion. But regardless, however you want to do it, it's you're supposed to notify them by September when you want to renew, or I'm sorry, if you want to give up a contract. Now, this contract is up at the end of the month for both, or end of the year, I'm sorry, for both. So I just want to remind you about that. The second bullet point I have is a reminder that you extended the deadline for payments without penalty through the end of this month. Staff looked at it. They're not necessarily making a recommendation to continue that. They're okay with whatever you decide as to whether or not you want to just stop at April 30th or continue. But they're ready to go starting May 1st if you don't want to do another motion to begin then as of May 1st collecting. And again, of course, because you forgave the past, everything from that time is forgiven. They would start the penalties, et cetera, as of May 1st, and again, start water shutoffs and all that stuff as of May 1st. So assuming you don't have any,
do we have any data? Like, do we have an unusual high amount of delinquents so far, or was it like, because like the cash flow seems like
I've been told it's about usual. It hasn't been bad.
Yeah, I would suggest that if we're not having an exceptional number of delinquency forgivenesses, that possibly we return to normal in May and then see how we are, because I think it's probably returning to pretty much normal times for most people.
Yeah, I agree. And I think staff does too, but it's always up to you. And I just want to make sure.
Backlog of people, asking for delinquency forgiveness, then I'd feel a little more concerned, but we haven't received that many.
No. And we did notify them in the Tree City Times. You remember before you extended it to April, we originally told them it was going to be end of March, and people should get their things in order. So people were warned from that point of view, and that is on the website as well as in the mail. So, I'm fine with that. The last item I added to outstanding items is the federal funds under the American Rescue Plan that was approved about a month or two ago. I just have a summary here of what's going on. We have not gotten final information yet. There's a lot of stuff going around. In fact, late today, I just got a letter from Congressman Doyle that I will scan in and email out to everybody about essentially saying what I have here on my notes. And I'm just going to touch on a couple of things. Right now, we believe we're getting between $600,000 and $700,000. He has a number on this sheet you'll see when you get this, but I had seen even higher than that when this first came out. And that's the reason why I was a little bit leery about making any positive statements about this on previous meetings. We heard that we will get probably half of it in May and the other half a year from then. And there is conflicting things about what it can specifically be used for. Obviously, there's general things that have been spelled out, and Congressman Doyle spells that out in his letter. So I'm not going to go into it in detail, but examples like I have here on my notes, which I'm looking at, for example, could be infrastructure like sewer, could be broadband, could be code expenses. One of the things it specifies, though, is that it is not for pensions. And there are other things supposedly they're going to come and tell us that it is not for, but we have not gotten a list yet. We have been told, though, that if you spend it on something that is not approved, they will make you pay it back. Okay. So Wendy just went on a GFOA webinar this morning and got some information. Most of it's general still. And ICMA, the organization I belong to, did meet with Treasury officials. And you'll see that they asked them for some specific information for municipalities so that we can get some guidance and be consistent. And the Treasury did say that their priority is to get payments to local governments around May 11th, somewhere in that, the first payments, issue comprehensive guidance on how the funds can be spent. They want to do that. And the Treasury Department also wants to set up a system to make payment and to handle reporting and compliance. So obviously, if we would get this money in before you make any decisions, what we're going to do is put it in a separate fund or account and maintain it entirely separately. It's something that's interest bearing if that's possible. I'm assuming they're going to let us do that. Sometimes they don't want you to put it in interest bearing, or if you do, they want the interest. I don't know that the Treasury is going to say that. Usually that's more the state. But in any case, we're still getting information. Like I said, I'll send you Congressman Doyle's letter and you can see some more detail in there. It's still kind of vague though, and they have not come out with specifics for anybody yet. He also has some information about school districts in his letter, so I'll let you look at that there. I'm not going to touch on that. Go ahead, Mark.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
It says essential workers reimbursement. Does it mean we could cover regular police salary, or it has to be COVID related overtime or something like that?
He was a little bit vague about that too. He said in there it could be as much as $13 an hour. He said in here, if I can find it real quick, it also is capped at $25,000 per worker, and essential workers are defined as those workers needed to maintain continuity of operations of essential critical infrastructure or other sectors that a chief executive officer may designate as critical to protect the health and well-being of their residents. So it's not any more specific than that just yet.
Okay. We just wait and see. Okay.
I think given that we have 2 years to spend this, I would really rather wait until we have, first of all, know exactly how much we're getting in hand, and secondly, have very clear guidance about what is and isn't allowed. I would hate to get into a position where we have to pay things back. So
Yeah, and again,
so pressing right now that we would be under duress to not be paying out money on this kind. And I think if we have a little more guidance, if it covers things like infrastructure, possibly some of our Alcoasand sewer repair obligations could be covered under there. I don't know. They had some very strange infrastructure listed in the note I read from the Municipal League. So I think I would rather wait until we have a little more clarity about this, and hopefully that will be forthcoming. I'm sure everybody's in the same boat.
right, they are. And that's why I'm just going to keep it under outstanding items until we get specifics, but I will forward to you Congressman Doyle's letter. Like I said, look for it tomorrow in an email attachment, and you can take a look. I think his estimate of our numbers total are 640,000, somewhere in that vicinity, half of which would come this year.
I saw 622 at one time. I don't know if they determined it for sure.
Yeah, actually I have it in front of me here. It's he says, I'm sorry, 622. Yeah, I was looking at the number above, another number, 622. Okay. So I'll keep that on there as an outstanding item. And as we get specific information, I'll let you know. Unless somebody has a question for me, I don't have anything else, although I will put up the bond issue stuff again when we go to that next.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions about anything I brought up though?
Nope.
No?
Good.
Okay. Well, if you're okay with it, I'm just gonna, last time we met, I had put up this bond issue information that I'd given you last month too. It's also attached to this agenda that you just got in an email. And what I did here again was take all the current capital items that were in the 5-year plan and put down here ones that I believe could qualify for bond spending if you wanted to do that. And obviously there's way more than the $500,000 that you have available. Okay, and there are some things on here that could end up being funded by a grant. There are some things on here that may or may not have a 15-year life, depending on what you're looking at. So I don't know how you want to proceed from here. Again, you don't need to make a final decision tonight. This is only the first year of that 3-year window you have to spend 85% of it. And again, you will not have any problem, believe me, spending 85% very quickly. So I don't know how you want to proceed from here though.
Do any people have looked at this? I have some things I think we can take out. in order to reduce the number down, because I think we're almost double the 500,000 target at this point. It's 1.831 million for the grand total. So we need to take out a number of these items. Do any people feel strongly about items that we leave in for sure? Have you given them any thought? I would say the public works equipment might be good candidates to leave in. The solar installation balance might be a good one to keep in, although we have some of that in an escrow fund. And I would say the renovations on the Westinghouse Lodge, if I had to pick, those would be my primary choices.
You have to go through the list again. I haven't done it in a while.
Could we make a point of doing that and giving me some feedback in between now and the next committee meeting, so we can resolve this at the next meeting for sure?
Okay.
Anybody object to doing that?
I don't have an issue with that, Patty. But I as well need to look it over with Marcus. Because there were some things that were missed, I think, last year that I discussed with I don't even know if it was on finance or public works in regards to the public works garage. I think we just need a fresh coat of paint on the block building and replace the broken windows. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big eyesore down there in that corridor, and I think that everything else is updated. Our old municipal building looks beautiful. The firehouse looks beautiful, and then you look at the public works garage, and it just looks like it's dilapidated. So I think minimal cost down there. I don't think it's going to be like the Westinghouse wreck. So I think we just need to allocate minimal funds down there for paint and windows.
Yeah, but that's why I don't think that needs to come out of the capital. That can come out of the.
No. I agree. I'm just saying it was looked over last year. So that's why I want to go through the list and just kind of itemize. We discussed just doing minimal stuff down there just to improve it and make it nice. And we never really did that. So that's all I'm saying. I just want to go over the whole list.
Okay.
To Mr. Gorel's point too, don't forget that you did allocate a decent amount of money to cover 2021 items. And for example, the garage building is in the regular budget. I don't think I show it here.
No,
But it is in there for as far as maintenance of the garage building. So if you take some pressure off the budget by removing some other things, that leaves you more money to be able to devote to something like that from just the regular funds too.
And the
So,
fire
you know,
truck, the fire truck should be taken out of that because it gets paid by the fee.
Yeah, and I just put that in there again because that was in the bond. I'm sorry, the capital plan. And I didn't mean that I was trying to suggest that should be. It's just, an example of all the things that were there. That's all.
But it's in the grand total of 2021, no? It's
Oh,
part of-
yeah. Yes, you're right. No, it is. Yeah.
And Patty said we are way off. I mean, that fire truck is a lot of money already.
Okay, so I think everybody should go through this with your final fine-tooth comb and come forward to the May committee meeting with some proposals of what you would like.
I'm not totally clear. How much do we have in the budget for this year? Like, how much money do we have to, let's say if we focus on 21, without fire truck, it's 190 at the moment.
Hold on one second. Let me see if I can grab that real quick.
How much do we actually have to cut?
Well, this is 1.831. We have to get it down to 500,000.
But we don't have to commit the whole 5 years, huh?
No, I'm looking at the 5-year total.
I know, but I don't think we have to commit this year for the 5. I think
Oh, yeah, I understand.
The total, I'm sorry. Yeah, the total overall in the capital for 2021 was $566,000. Okay, and that would include, as Mr. Marcus, I'm sorry,
okay.
Mr. Erbaldinger, gosh, is saying that would include things like the ladder truck, but later, that was shown later if you remember, in the capital budget. That wasn't shown across like I did in the bond issue thing. I put that in there at the time because we didn't know at that time when I created that list how exactly you were funding that. So I just stuck it in there that way,
Mhm.
just to show you. So, but you had 566,000 in the regular capital plan for 2021, and 3.2 million for the whole 5-year plan, which would have included a little under $1 million for the fire truck.
Mhm.
All right, so we'll go through this and people bring their yellow highlighted recommendations for the May Finance Committee meeting.
I'm sorry, I'm still confused. Like, how much do we have to cut? It's like 1.5 without the fire truck, and we have money in the regular budget every year.
These are things that we want to put in the bond issue from our bond refinance.
Yeah, the most, what you should look at, Marcus, is the most you have to spend for bond issue is 500,000. But what
Okay.
you should be looking at is what do you want to dedicate that
Oh, I
to?
see. It doesn't necessarily mean we're not paying for it. It's just we will pay it with our regular fund. Okay, I get it now. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
So we want
I-
long-term nice items and not just like concession stall, walls, or pool or whatever. Yeah,
Exactly,
Things that have
exactly.
5-year life or more.
yeah, I get it now. Sorry.
Okay.
for-
The bond issue you're paying for through 2035,
Right.
I believe. So you don't want something that you're going to pay for and only going to have a life until 2030 or
I get it.
2029. You want something that's going to have a longer life.
Right.
Not that you couldn't if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Certainly you can do whatever you want. You could, spend something for a desk or a lamp if you wanted to, but it wouldn't be prudent to do that,
I got it now. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right, so we have that as a task for everybody to look at for May. And I think that is the only other thing we need to talk about. Is there anything else anyone wishes to bring up under this committee? I have one report I would like to give you. I met with the new regional manager of Siemens Corporation, the infrastructure group of Siemens. And they came up for a tour of the building. We're very impressed and would like to work with us using our community as a pilot to do energy audits on all of the commercial buildings and all of the borough buildings, and look at doing a joint building performance kind of guarantee where we get to keep the savings and they do the improvements. I asked them to put it down in writing and give us a little more detail about how it would work. But I thought that was kind of an interesting idea that we hadn't thought about before, as a way that we could, help to bring some services to our commercial sector buildings for improving the energy performance and energy efficiency of that area. I don't think we need to do anything about it right now. I just wanted to let you know that there was a conversation in motion that they initiated that we might be getting some more detail on shortly. So I think that concludes Finance Committee, unless there's someone else wants to bring anything up. I do have a request. Mr. Erbldinger, would you report out at the business meeting for Finance Committee? I will not be at the meeting in April. I will be giving a speech out of town.
All right, happy to do that.
You could do the regular Finance Committee report at the council meeting on
Yeah.
April. That would be very,
Happy to do that.
thank you very much.
Okay, if that's it, then give me about 30 seconds and I will go to committee of the whole. Okay, I'm okay, Mr. Tomasic, if you're okay.
Go ahead.
But the first item I have is the hazard mitigation plan resolution draft, and Keith Morris has just appeared here on our panel. Keith, if you could unmute yourself. I know council wanted a real quick review of what that was about. Is there a reason to accept or not accept that? And I think they would have some questions for you about that
Right.
too.
Yeah, so a quick 30,000-foot view on the hazard mitigation plan is a document that is created by Allegheny County every 5 years to fulfill the statutory requirement by FEMA for every municipality to have an adopted hazard mitigation plan. There is municipal contribution throughout the creation process, and then a contractor pulls it all together. Title 35 does state that every municipality has to adopt a hazard mitigation plan. They can either create their own or adopt the county's. If we were to not adopt the plan, we have to do so within 90 days or explain why we're not adopting and create our own. If we don't do that, we're not eligible for any grant funding for mitigation projects or for any emergency dollars through public assistance if there was a major disaster that hit Forest Hills and we were applying for that relief. So that's kind of the why. And do you have any additional questions on that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Patty?
Yes, Keith, do you know if the hazard mitigation plan that the county has adopted that we would be signing on to, does it cover landslides?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, because that is the big, when we did our hazard and mitigation analysis for the climate plan, that was the one that really was the most significant for us.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure it's covered. Thank you.
That has been a big deal across the entire county over the last few years. So that is definitely.
What about mine subsidence?
I do not specifically know on mine subsidence.
Okay.
I personally don't think it covers mine subsidence, but it does cover the slides. We discussed this, we passed this 5 years ago, I think. I mean, it's almost identical if I remember.
Yeah, pretty much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any conditions that have changed in the last 5 years that you think we need to be aware of?
Not necessarily. And the nice thing about the county plan is it's pretty broad, and it's had input from almost all the municipalities, and they've picked the 50 largest mitigation issues within the county as identified by the participation in the surveys that were done in the creation of the plan. And even if we didn't submit a particular project as part of our submission to that, we can use any of the 50 ideas that other municipalities have had if we wanted to apply for mitigation funds or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Keith, can you tell us what we did in the past with these mitigation programs very briefly, and how we participated in them when we did have some disasters?
The mitigation plans, I have not specifically identified any mitigation projects. That's all come through Jimmy through Public Works. So Steve, I don't know if you can speak to those a little more than I can.
Not really. I don't. I'd have to talk to Jimmy too. I don't think so.
I don't know that we have. There has not honestly been a ton of pre-disaster mitigation money available. The easiest, the low-hanging fruit for mitigation dollars right now are when there's a presidentially declared disaster for the county. 17% of the dollars spent to recover from that disaster has to go towards mitigation efforts. But unfortunately, we haven't had one here in Allegheny County in the time that I've been the emergency management coordinator, so we haven't had access to those funds.
Anybody else have anything for Keith? If you don't, then
I'm
assume-
good. I think that was exactly what I wanted to hear. Like, just that it's like standard and that we have to do it. Pretty much, we have no choice in my
Yeah.
mind.
Then I will have it on the April 21st agenda to approve that resolution that is attached to this agenda again. And I assume, Keith, well, I'm going to put it on word for word as recommended by the county, correct? I assume there's no room for adjustment there, right?
No, I just used that standard language that they presented, and then we're just staying on the right side of it.
Okay. Well, if nobody has any other questions, then Keith, thanks for being a part of this.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt your evening. You
Just
know.
slid in from soccer practice. It was good timing.
Good. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If it's okay, then I'll move on to my other items here. Most of them are pretty quick. When we had the meeting last week for Public Works, the paving bids I did not have, so I attached them to your agenda. You'll see this page attached to your agenda. And again, there was some question about whether we needed to cut anything. I still don't think we do. I haven't had a full conversation with our treasurer and our engineer together, but separately, if these numbers are hold up, I don't think you need to cut anything from that, the recommended amount that Mr. Gilliland had told us. And so that's what I would put on the agenda for approval on the 21st. You can take a look at that though. And if you have any questions, of course, you'll be able to ask him on the 21st further. Somebody have a question? I wasn't sure. No? Okay. Item C on my notes, just a reminder about the ALOM June conference. I know I brought that up last week. Just in case you weren't paying attention or weren't on the thing. I know Ms. DeMarco said she was attending. I don't know if anybody else is, but the registration information is in your mailbox up here. And by the way, so will be your budget book this week if you want to come up like by Friday and pick it up. So if anybody else wants to attend, all you got to do is fill it out and let us know. We can register you. Just give us the information if you want to attend. And you don't have to pay your own money. We can, cut the check. There is funds budgeted for council to attend training as well as other people. So feel free to do that if that's what you want to do. But again, you'd want to get that in fairly soon so that we can get registrations in fairly soon. Two more items that I have that I want to just mention again. Next month on Ops and Policy, I'm going to put committee vacancy for the Civil Service and Planning Commission. Michelle Huber is leaving us, I believe, at the end of May, and she's on both committees. So we'll need to find some people to replace her. I know we did just recently got one person interested. I'm not sure what. I think it's a female. I'm not sure what she's interested in. I just heard that real quick, and I didn't get a chance to look at it. And we also do have alternates on the Planning Commission that can move up to the regular seat that she's vacating. But I'll put that on Ops and Policy for you to consider. Like I said, she'll be here through May, and so you don't need to have anybody in place until June. And whoever would come in would fill her vacancy and complete her term. Or if you move somebody up from alternate, I guess they would just complete their own term. I'll take a look at how we have that worded. But in any case, just so you know, that'll be on Ops in May. And then LED streetlights, again, just informational. I have some more information from Duquesne Light that needs to be reviewed before we submit anything. We have till the end of June to submit the streets for LED, but they've changed some other things that I wasn't aware of that I think you might want to talk about as far as the intensity of the light that we're going to use, as far as changing some lights that are already there, some LED lights. Plus, they also sent us some conflicting information about some streets that they claim do not have LED, and yet I know we did put LED there. And when we look at them, Jimmy and I both see LED lights. So I got to find out why exactly Duquesne Light has something misstated there. So I'm going to put that back on borough property and probably committee of the whole in May, just so you're aware of that. We have again till the end of June to submit this LED. They're not going to act on it right away anyway, but there are some other changes you may want to make as well. So I just want to call that to your attention. And if you don't have any questions for me, I have nothing else. Okay, I have nothing else then.
Okay, solicitors, excuse me, solicitors report. I think Mr. Corbo, I had tough time getting your name out there.
That's okay. Hopefully it'll be easy for people to remember in a month. For my report on the road issue for West Street, Dave Gillen wrote a letter that said that we can accommodate the up to 20 tons on that road. And so I would ask council, if you're inclined to authorize me to prepare and advertise an ordinance at the meeting next Wednesday. And I can have a draft to you even in advance of that, quite frankly, if you would want to look at it. It's pretty simple amendment to the current ordinance. So that's where we stand. That's sort of a Silversmith update as well. He does inquire, and Steve Morris will back me up on this, but he does inquire every week or two, like what's going on or when is this going to happen, and blah blah blah. So, if you're interested in moving forward, authorize me, and we can get it advertised, and you all can have it adopted by the May meeting, and that will also let Mr. Silversmith move forward with, sort of getting that ready and teed up to come into the borough.
So according to my understanding, Chalfont is already on board with this, and they're waiting for us on our side of the street to pass this. So my question would be to the council members, is anybody opposed to this process of passing this so that they can take the trucks up and down West Street? Okay, so if that's the case, then Mr. Corbo, I would move forward with that. And
Mr.
we can,
Tomasic.
yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just one thing. I know I ran to Chad and he asked me, as long as we, before we advertise, Steve, can we just check with Chalfont that they weren't sure what number they wanted to use? They just wanted to make sure their number is the same as our number. So the whole street would be the same and not we're 20 tons and they're 25 tons on the other side of the road. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Dave Gillen's letter said up to 20, and I would propose drafting the ordinance that would say, up to 20 or no more than 20, just so we're not. But I do agree with Mr. Thielacker. It would be good for Chalfont and Forest Hills to have the same limit. And I think, isn't Mr. Gillen their engineer as well?
No, but what's his name? Bob is.
Bob Ziska.
Yeah, Bob Ziska, who works for the same company. They're in the same company, are together. That's why I asked about Chalfont. I thought they already were in sync in terms of putting this thing together.
Yeah,
So
for some reason, they just want to make sure that somehow they didn't do something different than we did. That's all. So even if Steve Morris could just let them know, hey, we're using 20, that's all they need.
I agree. And I think we should just make a phone call to Dave, because Dave should clarify that for us, because Bob's right in the same office with him.
I had talked to Chad Hoover before too about it, and he said the same thing. He wants to do what we're doing. He just wants to make sure we're on the same page. So I can let him know, or I can tell Dave to talk to Bob and make sure that they're both okay. And then, either way, not a problem. What I'll do is I'll start with Dave, make sure the engineers are on the same page. That's what we really need to have that recommendation. So.
Okay. So that's a done deal then. And we can inform Mr. Silversmith so he doesn't email you anymore or call you up concerning the status. Okay. Any other questions or comments on that?
Yeah, I just have one question. We're still going to be monitoring that year over year, or year after year, as opposed to the road conditions. If there is cracking, or if the weight limit is too much. I mean, I'm fine with setting a weight limit, but I still want it to be monitored down the road just to make sure that nothing is happening.
I mean, that wouldn't be something we would deal with in an ordinance. Council would have to direct the engineer to do that. I understand that, but I think that they had said that they were fine with monitoring it yearly. So are we including that in this, or can we include this in that? I don't know, but I know that he had said that
whatever the weight limit was, they weren't going to exceed it. That's fine. And they were fine with checking it yearly to make sure that nothing was shifting whenever he made his proposal. And I just, if we set it at 20 and it shifts, then we can't go back. But if we set it at 20 and nothing happens and we check it yearly, that's fine. I just don't want to get down the road a year from now and the road's cracking or caving in on each side because of this truck traffic. That's the only thing I'm worried about.
The analysis that they have done or are doing, I believe they've completed it, suggests that it can handle that weight limit. And I don't know about monitoring it. My understanding is that was reinforced by Westinghouse at some time. I haven't spoken directly to anybody about this, but maybe we need to and have Dave report specifically on that and everything at the council meeting here that's upcoming. So let's get Dave to give us a report on everything, because we can't be saying, well, there's a crack in the road and if it's on our side, then we're going to have to do something. Well, what if the crack's on the road on Chalfont's side? So we need to get together with Chalfont. We need to get the two engineers together that work for the same company. My understanding was that this was already in the pipeline.
I'll tell Dave to be ready when the motion comes up to report at that time.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Mr.
Thanks,
Mayor.
Bill. Thank you, Bill and Steve.
I have a dumb question. And so West Street is a pretty steep incline. I'm assuming that trucks can both enter and exit the area through West Street up to Greensburg Pike.
That's the plan, as far as I understand it. That would be the only exit entrance that we're talking about from Greensburg Pike down to the Westinghouse site, former Westinghouse site.
And even so, like, just so we're clear, do we have it in the lease that even if their intention is to take it down to 30, I mean, their only entrance and exit point is West Street?
Well, yeah, we would have to redo everything because of the ordinances, the weight limits that we have in the avenues. So none of those trucks would be able to go through those areas at all.
Because I don't think, because I don't think roads in the avenues can support that sort of weight structure. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty confident that there are no truck signs posted along the avenues for that reason, right?
Yeah.
Frank, the way the ordinance reads now is that those kinds of weights are banned on all borough streets except a couple that are listed. It's like Marion, it's something like that, and it'll be West Street. I think that'll be the third street.
Perfect.
We just redid that not too long ago. In addition to that, I would also like to suggest that before the business actually goes into place, there are a lot of other items that we're going to have to cover with these guys. For example, if they're talking about these trucks, you don't want them starting up at 3 a.m. To be doing, driving around and practicing or whatever they're going to do down there. So, we already have something in place that people can't start doing work before, I believe it is 7 a.m., your garbage collection and so on. So these are the kind of things that they would have to follow as well. And we'd have to make them aware of that before they actually got the business started. So there are a lot of conditions that we already have in place, I believe. Okay, anybody else? All right, let's move on to number 3. Ms. DeMarco?
Yes.
Do you want to go through your Appalachia resolution?
Yes, I would like to do this with pictures instead of reading it. Steve, could you let me be co-host so I can share my screen?
Go ahead.
See if that works now. If not, I'll do one more thing.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Excelente. All right. Let me put it. All right. We have, as you know, had the president in town last week, and there are a number of infrastructure and clean energy future and other kinds of bills pending in Congress. The Reimagine Appalachia process is grassroots originated in Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky in the Ohio River Valley, originally gathered together to give an alternative to the petrochemical buildout that is initially represented by Shell. And our objective is to secure a significant portion of whatever federal allocations would be coming forward into our region specifically. And I want to go through this quickly and just show you why this is important. They're looking at expanding opportunity by investing in communities. And these are the principles that they want to put at the front. Good union jobs, give fossil fuel workers a real pipeline and a real pathway to doing the work. Ensuring access to minority and indigenous and women and low wage workers, and make sure that there are community benefits from the federal investments, and that this isn't something that we find ourselves on the short end of, as has been the case in so many times in the past. We're looking at needed infrastructure improvements, having attached requirements for wages, benefits, and diversity and union rights to create good union jobs in the proposals that are coming through Congress, and giving priority to people that are moving out of the extractive industries. We've had a number of union people, including the coal miners, including the Center for Coalfield Justice, having input into this. And they're not looking at just creating numbers of jobs that'll go away. These are careers and pathways to things that can be sustained, not a boom and bust type of thing. So we're also looking at rebuilding the middle class, and you do that by promoting union rights, better pay, benefits, and local ownership models. And we're looking at building a new economy, and these are the 5 processes that we're going to go through to do that. I'll go through them one at a time. We're going to create 243 jobs in Pennsylvania that are annual jobs. These are jobs that can be sustained over the next 30 to 50 years. And this is based on an economic analysis that was done out of the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. First of all is repairing the damage from prior oil and gas. This is the map of oil and gas wells that have been abandoned in Pennsylvania alone, and repairing leaks in the gas distribution pipeline and repairing the dams and levees. That is a $1.2 billion federal investment, and it'll create 9,283 jobs per year for 30 years. The second one is modernizing the electric grid, which you know is in pretty decrepit condition. And that includes electric grid upgrades, building retrofits, installing solar, installing onshore and offshore wind. This is the WindStax installation down on the Mon River. Doing low emissions bioenergy, including for bioplastic, and building out broadband throughout the state, especially into areas that are underserved or not served with broadband. And I'll give you the number of jobs there. This is the biggie. This is a $3.2 billion federal investment that will leverage $18 billion in private investments and create 142,999 jobs per year in these categories. And then we are looking at expanding energy efficient manufacturing. And that would be in combined heat and power systems, and moving into fuel cell production and using a bioplastic research and development. This is a $1.28 billion federal request, leveraging about $1.8 billion in private investment and creating 18,016 jobs per year. And building a more sustainable transportation system. A $928 million federal investment with $522 million of private matched investment, creating 16,182 jobs in a year. And this would include things like adding electric vehicle charging stations in public places, fuel cell buses and trucks, and electric train traffic that would be expedited in our corridor. And then absorbing carbon through establishing a modern civilian conservation corps, a $4.7 million federal investment that would create 56,700 jobs in a year. This would be primarily focused on restoring abandoned mine land and restoring water and wastewater and inland waterways that have been damaged in the past century.
Harry, that should be billion probably, or 4.7 billion.
What? No, that's 4.7 million. This is the
Really?
smallest of the programs.
They create 50,000 jobs. Wow.
Yeah, it's complicated. And then doing regenerative agriculture, which would be a way to help farmers transition into carbon capture through agricultural practices that conserve farmland. So why would we want to sign a resolution like this? We're trying to build a coalition of congressional delegations in these 4 states that will act together as a bloc to negotiate getting a significant share of the federal dollars to come to our region. Usually we fall short in the face of enormous delegations from places like California and New York. The coastal states usually benefit the most from these kinds of federal programs. So we want to have a significant amount of outreach and work to organize our congressional delegation to work together. And we've already had over 100 nonprofits and other organizations sign on to this resolution. We're now looking at adding mayors and local communities. So far, there are 11 mayors of large cities in the 4 states. This is aligned well with the Marshall Plan for Middle America that was announced by Mayor Peduto and the mayors of Huntington and I forget the names of all the mayors. There were 10 mayors that have already signed on to this. And we're building also legislative coalitions at the state level to pressure not only our state legislature, but also the governors who will have the authority to allocate funds. And we're looking at focusing on investing down into communities, not to have the money all go to big corporations. So the kind of things I can think of that we could do in Forest Hills if we get significant allocations for this kind of infrastructure build out. We can build out our eco district with solar roofed, efficient and modern business buildings. We can actually implement a complete streets program, excellent sidewalks, public transit and bicycle amenities throughout our borough. We can put in a solar photovoltaic parking canopy and charging stations and in a number of public areas. And we can upgrade our modern stormwater and water management systems, including any lead pipe replacement that might be needed. And we can give assistance to residents to upgrade and modernize their homes for energy efficiency. So seeing benefits in this program that would come directly to us, as well as having the advantage of having a stronger coalition working together for our own region, I would highly recommend that we sign this resolution. And I submit that for your consideration.
Okay, that being said, there is the resolution draft. Does anybody have any objections to it?
I have a question.
Sure.
Did you get any feedback from Mike Doyle, Jay Costa, and Summer Lee?
They have already endorsed it.
Okay. I think it seems like a lot.
He is a major proponent. He has already drafted and submitted a bill on the Civilian Conservation Corps. We had a briefing with him and his staff. We've done several roundtables on all of these issues. If any of you are interested, I'll happily send you the notices of we roll out white papers and issue papers all the time. And I'll put the website in here if you want to look at it. It's like,
yeah, I think sticking together as a region is a good idea. And like you said, competing with East Coast and West Coast
yeah,
makes sense. So
There
I'm in favor of it.
19 in our congressional delegation, and if they all stand together, it can make a big difference. We're working on Senator Manchin, who obviously is from West Virginia. He's a significant swing vote, but he made a huge move in the right direction this last week. His staff briefing was very positive. So I think we're making progress, and I'm feeling hopeful about it.
Okay, so is there any objection to the resolution, the draft that you see present?
I'm happy to make any language changes that you wish to tailor it to our town if you have any things you want changed. If not, I would ask that it be on the agenda for April 21st. I will not be there, so I'll have to ask someone else to champion it for me. And if I could ask if it votes, if the vote is favorable, if we could have the mayor sign a letter of endorsement and send that with the resolution forward to our congressional delegation.
Okay, if there are no objections to the resolution, then I suggest it be put on the agenda for the next meeting, and we'll move forward with it as we need to legally through Mr. Corbel.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to number 4, EMS report. Well, that's attached. Anybody have any questions on that?
No.
Other CAL items, I have nothing to discuss. Does anybody else have an item that they would like to bring up at this time? Okay, that being said, we can conclude the meeting, and Mr. Morris will take us offline, and then we'll go into the exec session, which I don't think should take very much time. So you can shut us down, Mr. Morris.
All right, give me a few minutes to get us off of YouTube and to stop recording. Just about 30 seconds.
And Mr. Morris, I wish your family happy celebrations together tonight. I hope you.
Thank you.
Me as well, Steve. Thank you.